and talk a little about the significance of Ratha-yatra and how important it is to help pull it up. It's going to be a little bit hard today, but it's very important to pull on the ropes and to pull it straight. In New Govardhan, there's parts of New Govardhan that are uphill, but to actually get a lot of benefit if you pull the ropes. So please don't be shy. Pull on the ropes and pull Lord Jagannath up the hill. The first Lord Jagannath festival took place on the back of a truck. It was a lowboy sort of a truck, and Prabhupada himself saw these kinds of trucks going by his room, and he made a diagram. And because of this diagram, some people constructed a kind of a tent affair, like a mandap on the back of a lowboy or a flatbed truck, and that was the first Ratha-yatra. The Ratha-yatra became a kind of a fashion. It became a fashion to wear a Lord Jagannath pendant around the neck for the people in San Francisco in the late 1960s. They used to wear a Jagannath that was about 10 centimeters high. The Jagannath could be purchased in a shop. It was imported from India, and it was a kind of a fashion, a fad among the people that lived in the Haight-Ashbury area of San Francisco to wear Lord Jagannath around the neck as a pendant. Anyway, so Prabhupada decided to call this temple New Jagannath Puri because it was on the sea coast, it was on the coast of the Pacific Ocean. And the first Ratha-yatra festival went all the way to the ocean. It consisted of a flatbed truck with 3 deities on it, like this one, and it went all the way to the beach side where there was a big feast. So I want to talk about a little bit about a samadhi that has been installed in India. It's been there since the late 17th century. It's called the Samadhi of Solabeg. Solabeg was born in a Muslim family. Actually, his birth is very unusual. His mother was actually a Hindu, and his father was a Muslim. And there was a lot of tension at that time. The Muslims were in charge of India at that time, from about 1347. Solabeg's father, his original father, Solabeg's father, his name was something else, Beg, had Beg in it, went to the Muslim king and he said, I have a grudge against these Hindus, and I can ruin their temple. So he gave him permission to be the emperor or the governor of West Bengal and Orissa. So he gathered together a big army in a place called Cuttack. And on the way, the purpose of this army was to ruin the Jagannath temple, to desecrate the deities and to ruin it. But on the way, this warrior saw a very beautiful, attractive Hindu widow, and he was so taken with her beauty that he sort of kidnapped her. And she was a Hindu, and he kidnapped her and put aside his campaign to desecrate the Jagannath Puri temple. And with his army, they all went back to his palace, and he took this lovely lady named Lalita back to his palace. And she tried to escape on several occasions, but she couldn't do it because he was a very, very powerful warrior. And so she finally agreed to become his wife with certain restrictions. And one of the restrictions was that he would never desecrate or despoil any Hindu, any Brahmin temples or homes. And so he agreed to that. And so this campaign was temporarily put aside. But unfortunately, this man was killed after about a year, and his successor was appointed the governor of West Bengal and Orissa, and he was determined to ruin the Puri temple. So there was a great conflict between the Oriens, the Hindu Oriens, and the Muslims. They were trying to invade Orissa, the state of Orissa, still on the east coast of India. And it so happens that Solobeg, because he was brought up and he was trained to be a very great Mohammedan warrior, during the conflicts between the Oriens and the Muslims, he was very seriously wounded by the Oriens, and he thought he was going to die. And he told his mother, who was ministering to him at that time, that it would be better for him to die than to have to undergo the severe pain. So at that time, his mother revealed to him for the first time that she was actually a Hindu, and that her family was Hindu, and her mother and father were Hindus, and that her first husband died, and they were both very young at the time, and because of this, she began to weep, and they both wept when the truth was revealed. And so she told him everything, such that for Solobeg there was nothing that was not revealed. He knew everything about the past and how his mother had been kidnapped. So she told him about this family deity they had called Gopinath. And Solobeg was very, very skeptical about whether a deity that lives in Vrindavan, that belongs to another faith, could even hear his prayers in such a great distance. Vrindavan was almost 2,200 kilometers away from their place in Orissa. So she told him that we'll try this. We'll pray to Lord Gopinath for 12 days, and if he doesn't cure you, then we'll both commit suicide. And so they both agreed to end their lives if Gopinath didn't cure his disease or his wound, his mortal wound. So after 12 days and very intense praying to Lord Gopinath, nothing happened. So he told his mother that nothing was happening and he wasn't cured from his wound. And she said, well, sometimes Gopinath gives you blessings by giving you curses. And it's said, I think, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Yasyaham Anugranami Harishe Taranam Shanai, that sometimes, and Queen Kunti prays for more difficulties and calamities to be heaped upon thee because we'll remember you. So she explained all this to her son. He was her only son, by the way. And she was in mortal fear of him dying of this wound. So then the next night, he had a dream that the Lord Gopinath personally came to him and asked him to smear this special ash called vibhuti on his wound, on his mortal wound, on his very severe wound from the Oriens. And when he woke up that morning, the wound had disappeared, and he was filled with ecstatic symptoms, and he thought that Gopinath had saved him, actually. So then he, according to his mother, said that Gopinath has given you great mercy. Gopinath is the same as Lord Jagannath in the temple. So you should pray to him constantly. And this Solobeg became a very great poet. He composed many great poems in the Oriyan language and in Bengali and even in Hindi and other languages, because he was a very, very astute personality. So, but he wanted to go to Vrindavan to see what Lord Gopinath was actually like, and to visit the temples in Vrindavan. So he went there for nearly a year, and it's a long ways, but he went on foot to Vrindavan, and even though he is a Muslim, he took shelter of the Lord Gopinath and developed a taste for his pastimes as a child with Yashoda and Nanda and so on and so forth. And then he also developed a great desire to come back to Puri, to it's sometimes called Vipralambra Kshetra, the place where one cries out for communion with Krishna. So he set out on foot for Vrindavan, which is a month-long journey, because it's a long ways. And there was no hope of him reaching in time for the Ratha-yatra festival at the rate he was going. So, and as he was walking, he began to compose many wonderful poems in Bengali and Oriyan and in Sanskrit. And he got very inspired, and he began to run towards Puri. But it was still too late, because by the time he got there, the Jagannath cart had already gone to Gundicha temple. But on the return journey, which is part of the festival, after 1 week the cart comes back, it's called the Ultarat, the cart stopped. And Lord Jagannath his cart could not be moved, even though there were many great elephants, there was a lot of kirtan and a lot of special prayers were given, that cart could not be moved. And what was happening actually was that Lord Jagannath was waiting for Solobeg to come to him, to return. And as Solobeg entered Orissa, he heard that this cart coming back to the Jagannath temple, and it was It was during the monsoon season, and it was scorchingly hot, much hotter than this and very humid, more humid than this, because it's monsoon season, and it's a very, very difficult thing. So all the elephants and all the king's men, so to speak, couldn't get the cart of Lord Jagannath moving. And when Solabeg reached the temple of Sri Kshetra, the main temple, the Jagannath temple, and he heard about this, he became very ecstatic, and he ran to where Lord Jagannath was waiting for him. And all the people were aware of this, and the word got around that Solabeg's home deity, his natural deity, was stopped waiting for him. And because of that, he stayed there for the rest of his life. And there's a samadhi. For those of you who have ever been to Puri, there's a place called the Grand Route or Grand Road, and there's a samadhi for Solabeg erected there, and there's a temple around the samadhi that says in English and Hindi and in Bengali and Oriyan, it's written, Temple of the Samadhi of Solabeg. And the people that know the Orisan language, he's so famous in Orissa, Solabeg, that they know a few lines of the words from his poems. And even in the Jagannath temple, after the prayers are sung the Gita Govinda prayers are sung, there's a song there's a poem and a song that was composed by Solabeg that is also sung in that temple. So he's a very famous personality. And what this means is that it really doesn't matter whether you're a Muslim or a Hindu or a Christian. It really doesn't matter. You can get the mercy of Lord Jagannath, just like people were doing in San Francisco in the 1960s. They were getting the mercy of Lord Jagannath. So if you pull these ropes, not only to pull them, but just to touch them, but especially for pulling the cart, you get great benefit. And it's the only time that Lord Jagannath comes outside of the temple. And it's a very corrupt situation in the Puri temple. Some of the existing priests don't let it.
그리고